thank you for joining us as we continue Art Basel Hong Kong's conversation program in 2022 with this deep dive into the inner workings of Documenta 15, which will be opening this summer. We are so delighted and excited to welcome Farid, Rakun and Indra Ameng of Ruangrupa, artistic directors of Documenta 15, and Gertrude Flentge, a member of the Documenta 15 artistic team, who will be hosting this discussion with speakers Molemo Moiloa, Surab Padke, Li Xiaotian, and Alejandra Rojas Gilrado, who are members of 4 majelises or assemblies organized as part of the exhibition. So just a little bit of housekeeping before we begin. We have simultaneous translation into Mandarin, and you can choose your preferred audio channel by pressing the button at the bottom of your screen, where you can also submit a question using the Q&A function, and we'll respond to as many questions as we can towards the end of the talk. So without further ado, Documenta 15, thank you for being here with us. We're so excited. We give the floor to you.
Thank you very, very much, Stephanie, Toby, as well as Adeline and the whole team for having us, and also kind of like let us do something different, structurally at least, from usual Art Basel talk. I'll start maybe with sharing my screen. Hopefully it's okay. You can see it. I'll just like let it run. This is a loop of collection of diagrams or sketches about how we imagine Documenta 15 could be. As you can see, maybe it's just like different translations of structures, including this one actually. When we were talking to the team, Stephanie kind of like imagine Documenta 15 or what we're trying to do in Lumbung as like a flip 8 or like infinite thing. What when we got invited, actually what we're trying to do is to give a glimpse of how we do things, because we try, as Ruangrupa, we invited Documenta to our journey, which is called Lumbung, or an experiment that we've been doing since at least 2016, how to co-govern resources with other collectives in Jakarta, so it becomes collective of collectives. And then because of the pandemic and everyone needs to go to Zoom, all those kind of stuff, we had to improvise a lot. We came up with something called Majelis, or that's an Indonesian word derived from Arabic meaning assembly. We tried to kind of like question the habit of which we learn also by being invited artists in group shows, etc. How to kind of like make collective of collectives, that's one, but also the second thing is how to introduce or question the competitiveness between showing artists in such group shows like Documenta itself. So we have with us here right now some of that Majelis, because we broke things or broke invited artists and members into different Majelises. What you see here is actually like a sketch from Ameng. It's not complete, but this is kind of like the first sketch when we were trying to communicate the Majelises, and then yeah, learn from it, learn from the Majelises themselves. That's why we invited these names also with us, not only us Ruangrupa, but or plus the artistic team, which is kind of like Ruangrupa extended family right now, and but also our extended friends. So I think as a starting point, I can stop there. Maybe Gertrude or Ameng can add more for now.
Ameng, you want to go first? Okay, yeah, just to add maybe a little bit. So as Farid was saying, Majelis to kind of go beyond the competition of the exhibition, but also as a very important way to start to organize Lumbung, no? Because Lumbung is what we are trying to do, building long-term resource sharing between artists working in ecosystems all over the world. And so the Majelis, each artist and Lumbung member has been grouped in small groups of 5 to 6 artists. And we have a specific Majelis called Lumbung Interlocal, which consists of 14 collectives. And the Majelis is meant to, first of all, to get to know each other more deeply, because it's very important to build trust and to really understand each other's practices, to be able to start to share resources and to know what makes sense. So the Majelises, many Majelises started to exchange projects and talk about each other's practices, but also each Majelis had a collective pot of production money. And as Farid was saying, initially we had imagined that we would all have met live many times in several Majelises. This has never happened until now. We were stuck to Zoom. So some of the Majelises were quite artificially crafted in a way. It's people that didn't know each other partly, but many people have, of course, a lot of experience and practice in collective organizing and know how to share and be together. So it's great. I think we have 4 very different experiences of Majelises here with the artists present. That can talk about it. Ameng, maybe you want to add something?
Yeah, thanks Gertrude and Farid. Yeah, first forgive us for the poor drawing or the poor sketches, I think. Our poor sketches. But yeah, this is, I think, good that Farid show how we started with all the ideas from the scratch, and how we try to also develop Documenta 15 based on our Lumbung practice to again to create relationship between us with the artists and between all the artists through these majelises. And one thing that's this really really more deep into the focus more deep into the process that we need really time based to experience this and to understand, mostly to understand each other's, and how from this we also learn so much from everyone, because of different contexts and also different needs that everyone trying to govern its majelis. This is really something that for us also something that we really learn a lot. Like for example, like what we have before, like in Ruangrupa experience with Good School, when we form this collective of collectives in Good School. This is also when we try to learn a lot to see others' needs and how we can accommodate and we can support each other by sharing our resources together. And I think this is the base how we can also facing today's, I think, situation, how we can build our connection and relation through Documenta as part of the journey. Yeah, I think this is from me. If Gertrude and Farid want to
thank
add.
you very much, Meng. Maybe because of time as well, because we'd like to let people learn from, like, we're opening up like our sharing sessions, basically sometimes we do big majelis, mega assembly, and then that's where like each majelis share to each other. And then actually it's going to happen again, Majelis Akbar, tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, every time it's kind of like it's kind of like exciting but also challenging, because it's 180 screens in Zoom, you know, and plus. And then it's not always easy, but we're trying to do it. And then we're lucky to work with people who are generous, sufficient, and all those kind of stuff, which you will hear more from each artist. So maybe I'll open it up to the four of you, Surab, Molemo, Xiaotian, and Alejandra. Aleja, who wants to start? I can share your images if you've decided. It's up to you.
Maybe we can start with Aleja, who's in the longest term Majelis, which is the Lumbung interlocal. And it will be nice to hear you have had a bit more privilege than the others to have a 2-year process until now, compared to some others that are just 1 year together. Oh, this is a great image.
Oh, I know her, Aleja. I know her, Aleja.
Do you? Yeah, thank you, Farid, Indra, Gertrude. Yeah, it's been such a journey, no? Such a challenge to embrace to build the Lumbung. I really like the idea or the concept of Lumbung building, because I think we are all the time building that Lumbung, and I think that's in the basis of the invitation to all of us have like agency and a lot of contribution to understand what it means. You know, like there's a framework of invitation. There's all the Lumbung values, these members that you believe embrace the Lumbung in different locations, but then how to build Lumbung together has been such a journey. We've been, like Gertrude is saying, 2 years, more than 2 years. I'm already confused with times and covered and all this. Meeting regularly, at least once a month, both in the like complete assembly, if you want to call it somehow, or in different working groups, no? A lot of this, I think, comes with the experience of arts collaboratory. There's like a particularity that Más Arte, Más Acción and Ruangrupa, we're both part of Arts Collaboratory. Gertrude is part of DUN, who's also a member of Arts Collaboratory, no? So a lot of the experience in self-organization, self-governance, and understanding these spaces as resources in a very broad understanding of resources is, I think, the invitation, no? So we've been working around also as a mechanism in the collective pot. We have a collective pot for collaboration, which for me already, and Molemo is also part of Arts Collaboratory. We have been working into collective pot since a while now, no? So it is very common for me to just say it, and I feel like very, very close to this mechanism or way to approach a collective resource. But it's been also such a process of building and understanding how can we go through the whole Lumbung and Documenta process, understanding it as a resource. And being in Documenta is just like a window or a section of a longer process, which starts very much in our own localities, no? And I think Más Arte, Más Acción has that particularity, well, not particularly, but has that spirit in the way we work. We work in the Colombian Pacific, North Colombian Pacific coast and a little bit inner inside in the Atrato River in the Gulf of Triuga. It's actually the territory that you're seeing in the photographs. And we brought these two photographs because it was such a pleasure to receive Ameng and Ismail from Jatiwangi and Ameng from Ruangrupa and Good School also, to be with us in our own local Lumbung. We have been for a couple of years now very much engaging with different territorial organizative processes and projects led by Afro-centered, mostly Afro-centered groups, both in the Atrato River, in the Gulf of Triuga, and in Buenaventura, who I think all of us in a way share that desire to challenge the prevailing paradigms, no? The prevailing paradigms that are not only the ones in the global, like, I don't know, north, south, or bigger geopolitical relations, but also inside our own country, the centralism of our country, the whiteness of our government and our nation kind of structure, and then all of these organizative processes that I think something that we recall a lot is that it's not just kind of the ancestral and stuck in time, but it's very contemporary narratives and ways of understanding in complexity and life in such a biodiverse territory as this territory is, no? So we had our own Lumbung in Nuki, where we united with around 50 people from different locations of the country, with the interlocal Lumbung also present there to exchange our processes, our knowledges, to have difficult conversations also, embracing the diversity also of the peoples and the trajectories that are all involved, and trying to make sense of a collaboration that might have not happened if we were not meeting all of these relationships, maybe as also Ruangrupa is inviting us to meet these relationships with the broader Lumbung ecosystem, no? So maybe I would leave it until there, just to say that we are very expectant to be in Kassel for this very first physical encounter. I feel like making revolution there in a way. It'll be super exciting. It's been very difficult, we all know, because we are building it all the time, and we're building every detail of this process, and coming from such process-oriented projects and contexts and ways that we work, and then trying to kind of make a sense to that process in the like Documenta, more kind of exhibition oriented. How do we balance that out has been a challenge, you know, but it's super interesting, and it's mostly contributing to make a lot of questions back to our own processes. So I think that's really valuable. I'll leave it to there. Thank you.
Maybe to add for clarification a little bit that all artists and Lumbung members have been invited based on the work in their local ecosystems, and our curatorial question has been to work on the sustainability of that ecosystem and to use Documenta and the Lumbung to strengthen that sustainability. So also this Majelis process is important. So it was nice to see in your pictures how Ameng and Jatiwangi Art Factory came to also work in your local ecosystem on that. Maybe it's nice to continue with Xiao Chen, how that has been for you in your Majelis. you've been talking a lot about food as a shared passion and how that relates to your work, maybe.
Yeah, thank you, Kuchu. And thank Apostle and Rupa, Farid, Ameng for inviting me. Hi everyone, I'm Xiao Tian from Guangzhou, south of China. Now I'm working as an independent curator, and I'm working with BOLOHO, Lumbung artists of Documenta 15. Our Majelis start to work together from November last year, and BOLOHO worked with Gertrude and Ming Hao from Chengdu, Zhang Anman and her team, including Ting Zhou and Han Fang from Taiwan, Mo K. Patil from Mumbai, India, and Sasa project from Lumbung, Cambodia. It's always, I think it's always a very challenging journey for us to discuss how we could work together online instead of sitting beside each other. At first, everyone is a bit shy, and Sasa friends share their cocktail receipt, and we gathered to make the same cocktail online. So food connects us and make us feel closer. Then we gradually meet once 2 weeks and then once a week, and the discussion of how to cooperate went quite smoothly. I want to maybe talk to everyone about our proposal of working together is composed of 3 sub-projects born from our mini Majelis common interest in food culture, linking each member's own project, translating each artist and art collective's local system in Guangzhou. The 3 sub-projects including an online shop, a combinable publication, a series of food events, and also together we support Min Hao and Jianjun's project in Guangzhou. Let me introduce more about the 3 sub-projects. The first is the online shop on Taobao, a lasting digital platform. Each member of our mini Majelis will provide some products to sell. A certain percentage of the revenue will go to the platform maintenance and the artists. BOLOHO suggests this online shop, and we call it BOLOHO Laugh Out Loud. This Taobao platform aims at the Chinese market mainly. On one hand, we would like to help more people to know about the Lumbung concept and better through share the content related. On the other hand, China is a high-speed developing market, but also with high restraint conditions, which means it might be a good opportunity, but also an interesting challenge to try to build up something here. The money in common port will be used to produce, transport the content or object we create directly, which means based on the principle of voluntary and fairness, the group members who show interest in sharing and distributing the content to the store could use their share here on it. The content or project or object will commit to BOLOHO to promote the distribution in China. We will suggest the retail price based on our knowledge of the Chinese market. At the same time, BOLOHO will undertake the translation, design, operation, management works, and the cost of BOLOHO Laugh Out Loud. When the sales happen, the cost from the common share will come back to the local site, and the allowance for prepared works, the cost of translation and repackage, and the funds of future continuous operation will come from actual selling profit be produced. And maybe you can see from this slide we made, that's how we make the from a MOS proposal as an example. Maybe that's clear for everyone. The second sub-project is a combinable publication, which is on the left of the slide. This is a visual reference of the publication. But it will be based on food journey and culture exchange. We plan to do a receipt and map-based book. It's an open and live publication, which could restructure in different contexts, and could also add some more stuff after the Documenta 15. That's what we thought. We can see this is more like a collection of maps, receipts, stories, journeys, etc., etc. For example, BOLOHO's receipt, Anman's snail receipt, and Mingha and Jianjun's water map and Mo's map, and stories of cleaning, and Sasa art story and maps of why building, and so on. This is what we all contributed into the book. And it also can be like a restaurant manual, a cooking book, or a travel log assembled through food maps and journeys of different places. We thought it should be an organic publication with an open ecosystem, and the template could be designed as an easy to make public version. It will be conducted in English and one original language depending on the contribution. And the third sub-project is a series of pop-up food events. But there's still some uncertainty under the situation of pandemic, but I think we will figure it out collectively. An on-site event which gives more communication among local community viewers and all related food culture means a lot to us. Many of the Majelis member of us engage with food and ecology in our practices. So food is something we share in common. We want to make a series of food events in Kassel, introducing local dishes from our culture. But we'll see if it will come true or it will become something else. And that's the end of my sharing.
Thank you very much, Sao Tien. And it's also kind of like maybe there's a lot of overlapping ideas. Like for us, Lumbung, we have ideas of course, it's ongoing all the time as well. Lumbung Gallery, Lumbung Kiosk, and then Lumbung Press and all those kind of stuff, which I think for those of you who will visit Documenta 15 in the, like what, 1.5 months by now, or 2 months? No, 2 months. Then you will be able to experience it as well. So as you can see, sometimes ideas overlap and then we leave it that way. And then on that note, I think Surab, maybe it would be good for you to go next, because I just realized as well, like you're the only individual artist participating this, like like BOLOHO made you look Artemas Action but funnily enough for us, sometimes, like, you know, you're one of the most Lumbung artists we have invited, we're working with right now. So please take it over.
I'm also the only fake artist over here, so that's also good. Thank you so much for all the sharing. You've seen diagrams of the Lumbung cosmology and how bubbles interact with each other and different things are connected to each other and so on. So this is on the same lines. Of course, I didn't copy Ameng, so he shouldn't feel anything is to be, no transaction shall happen based on this. But within this entire cosmology, I had the opportunity to be part of 2 majelises and or 2 councils or 2 gatherings. And both of these were very different animals in terms of their temperament, in terms of their constitution, because one of them consists of only 5 artists, and has had more than a year of getting to know each other, building relationships, building understanding, trust, so on. Whereas the other Majelis has about 15 members and has had maybe 6 months to come together and perform. So in that sense, it started off in the deep end. And so it has been really interesting to see how humans gather and function or don't function depending on different circumstances, and what are the common needs that all of us operate from. And so within these majlises, there has been a lot of exchange in terms of stories, resources, ups and downs, experiences, projects, collaborations, so on and so forth. Later, if you want to know anything in particular, I can share the gossip with you. But there has been a lot that the majlises have been going through because we hang out with each other every other week or so for a couple of hours. And so it's been a really lovely time for everyone to come together and essentially try and understand each other and try and understand what is it that we are kind of co-creating together in different ways. Farid, if you show the next one, it's also important to kind of take a step back from this cosmology and kind of see this entire thing as a work of art in a way, and literally it's the work of art in a very literal sense, that the artistic team has kind of started like a sourdough culture, and it's now bubbling by itself, and there are lots of different things going on. There are gases which are coming out of it. Artists are known to be gassy. So the whole thing is that how do we look at this as a larger thing, as an artwork which celebrates the aesthetics of politics in a way, and the aesthetics of power, aesthetics of decision-making, aesthetics of governance. How is it that we are present and true to these mundane processes that take place amongst us all the time? And how can we stand our ground and beautify them through our attention and other means, has been something that has been coming up as a constant question to consider for me personally, at least. And so how can the means and the ends kind of feed into each other? So how does the process of creating an art event stay true to artistic considerations in that way? So the Lumbung, the cosmology, and all these bubble diagrams that we are looking at, if we can try and imagine them as artistic experiences and works of art, rather than ways of organizing human beings and getting them into different hierarchies of sorts. So, so for me personally, it isn't so much about the common pot or resources, because it's much more about the relationships and how people can kind of relate to each other and come together and create solidarity. Yeah, that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Surab. As always, your humor, because that's one of our values as well. Enlighten the room, although it's virtual room this time.
I was going to draw a beard on one of those circles just to identify where I was in the constellation, but I thought that's not necessary. So yeah.
Maybe you move all the time as well. Molemo, over to you.
Thanks, Farid, and thank you, everybody. It's great getting a kind of closer look at all the different processes, even though we're able to kind of connect through the mega Majelis. As Farid says, it's often a massive group, so it's kind of swimming. I don't have any bubbles in my drawing like Surab and Ameng, but have a kind of general picture that has some bubbly tendencies of the different groups in our Majelis, which is Le 18 from Morocco, Party Office B2B Fadesha from India, Alice Yard from Trinidad, ourselves from Johannesburg, Meiji Look from South Africa, Serigrafistas Queer from Argentina, and then we have a little lonely orphan similar to Surab called Eric Beltran, who is the love of our group as well. He's a single artist and not part of a collective. And we've been meeting, I think, since about August last year. And I really relate to a lot of what Surab said around sort of trying to find ways of connecting and working together and sort of finding sites of solidarity and relationship across these very different projects and different contexts. And I think that this sort of relationality of the way that each of us works has been quite difficult to place in the space of the like Zoom call and the kind of administrative bureaucratic frame it can kind of create. And so sort of developing that connection has not always been easy. One of the ways that we've done that has been through using the model of Agrau, which is in fact from Morocco. Le 18 introduced it to us. And Agrau is actually based on a kind of political organizing model used by communities in solidarity and against extractive mining processes in a rural part of Morocco there. And using the Agrau model and kind of copying this and shifting it into what we needed, it became a kind of structure for us to begin connecting also across quite distinct language barriers from these different contexts, and became a kind of shared space of experiment, I think, which really connected us really well. I think one of the big things that's emerged across all of the groups and individuals in our Majelis, and particularly as we've been thinking about this collective part and sort of the collaborative processes as have been shared with some of the other Majelises, has been around the politics of the mega show and kind of what it means to be artists who are very situated in our localities and very committed to our contexts, and yet kind of the whole frame that brings us together. Being Lumbung is this much bigger vision and much sort of longer term way of being a collective of collectives. And yet, and I think both Surab and Aleha pointed to this, there's still this kind of giant show in the middle. And we're all kind of oriented towards how do we create value and kind of works that connect to our ethics and practice in our own localities in a way that's then interlinked across these multiple localities within our Majelis and across Majelises, but then also somehow respond to the fact that we're invited to Kassel and to make work in Kassel. And I think at some points in our Majelis, this has actually been quite a kind of issue of tension and like difficulty of where our priorities lie and to whom our priorities lie. And I think Aleha spoke to how so many of us are very process oriented and committed to what it means to be in relation and to connect. And so the kind of hyper productivity and deadlines and budget discussions can sometimes feel like they're kind of a contradiction to the kinds of ways that we all like to work. And I think this has very much been the collective experiment of this entire project, is what does it mean to take this model of the mega show and to try and wrangle it and twist it to our own interests and our own needs as a mass group of 180 and more and plus, because that's definitely one of the things that we're all very good at doing. It's just more and more people, more projects, more everything, which is sometimes in contradiction to our politics of non-productivity, I think. But I think has become a really fascinating process, and something I wanted to sort of just end off with is that in our first Mega Majelis, we did a series of introductions, and I think there were like 150 people or something on that Majelis, and every single person introduced themselves, and I think it took like an hour and a half, 2 hours or something like this. And it was the most amazing process of just the patience of everybody being present on a Zoom call. And everybody was present through this whole 2 hours of like, hello, you know, like recognizing the kind of the next person and the next person and the next person. And it has been an extraordinary experiment, particularly across this kind of COVID time, what it means to create relationship and what it means to create Lumbung across such different contexts within this kind of weird framework that contemporary art offers us. And I think I agree very much with Surab that has created really quite beautiful relationships. And I think we're all really excited to be present and in person in 2 months. Yeah, that's it from me.
Yeah, Gertrude, you want to take on?
I was looking to the questions in the chat, and there are two questions, and one says, "Thank you to the panel. What are we going to see in Kassel?" And the other one says, "What has this experience taught you about questions of collectivity and solidarity in the context of art?" So maybe anyone wants to react to either of the two?
I can jump in and say that from what I've been able to glean of what you're going to see in Kassel, is definitely a lot of us. I think there's going to be a lot of the artists present, and a kind of it's become a kind of space of gathering. I think Kassel is an opportunity for an excuse to bring people together who have quite distinct kind of connections and very different contexts, but important interrelated kind of concerns and issues. And so I think one part of what Kassel will definitely be and what we'll be seeing will be, yeah, a place of gathering, but that's one of many, many parts, I think.
Yeah, I wanted to compliment Molemo. As you're saying, it's many people, no? It's many people because actually our like general concept, if you wanted to call it somehow, which is already a collection of concepts of many others, is the idea of spaces to reflect as works of art. So it's going to be a lot of conversations, laboratories, dialogues, exchanges. Being present is going to be very important. So, and the so-called public, which like that line is really blurry. Yeah, for me it's like a big assembly of really amazing territorial processes being represented or with people that are part of these processes in the different localities of the so-called global south or global souths, which doesn't mean it's in the south of the globe, but all of these processes that in some way or the other work at the margins of the dominant structures of power or circulation of arts and etc. No? So I think it'll be like a very exceptional. I'm very expectant of this meeting of such an amazing group of hundreds of people, which each of them carry not just a territory in their presence, but also like very particular ways and practices that also kind of open the limits of what we consider as art, or what are those art practices that really expand the limits of what we think is possible, and very much related to contexts that are crossed by extractivist economies or struggles with local powers or destruction of nature, or all of these kind of intersections of power relations that in a way unite us, even if we are in so many different places. No, so I think all of us are there in a very political stand. No, so yeah.
There is a third question. What has it been like?
But maybe
go ahead, Ameng.
Yeah, before this, I can just like want to add that, yeah, if what we going to see in Kassel is like this art exhibition that will be not kind of the same, because of the crisis and also the pandemic. So this is what I think we will experience. This will be different because of the crisis and of course the pandemic, and this will create a different kind of experience to organizing this kind of mega art exhibition, and also to experience this kind of exhibition or event. Yeah. Please, Gertrude.
No, I agree with you, Ameng, and also I think that this has caused a little bit that this question of collectivity and kind of co-curating Documenta with all these collectives and the long term has become a little bit more in tension with the big mega exhibition, no? Because I think if we would have been able to meet and really, as we had planned, like collectively curate everything from the beginning, there wouldn't have been this bigger tension between the two. So for me, this is one of the big learning still, like there is exhibition time or Documenta time, and there is collective time that we try to bring together, but yeah, because of COVID and exhibition pressure, I think there is still this continuous tension between the two, which also is very interesting and we learn a lot from. But maybe that's also still a question back to the artists here. No, our intention was also this idea of all these majelises is also to set up a way of collectively curating and decentralizing the position of the curator. At the same time, it has also been like a kind of double process, no, of making the working in the local ecosystem and then attending all the majelises. So I was also curious to hear back from you. We have heard already a little bit, like, is the solidarity, is the networks still worth it, or what have you gained from it? If you can say it now. No?
Yeah, like even when first we meet artists, no, Gertrude, back then, first we always ask first, like, what are you doing now? Like, this is like very important to know the condition first, because it's very different and very hard for all of us. Yeah.
So has it been worth it, Surab?
Let's not go into the pain of it, but no, it has been super. That was the correct answer. I was just thinking about the question that what is it that we'll see in Kassel during the 100 days also needs to be kind of flipped over to think what is it that we won't see in Kassel, because just as Gertrude was saying about decentralizing the curatorial center, it's also, we need to kind of dismantle mega events also. So how do we make things unseen within certain spans also is the crucial question. How do we spread them out? How can things happen before the event, during the event, after the event? This has been something that everyone has been talking about for the longest of times. So it's not just about sensorial appeasement through art in that sense, but it is much more about trying to see processes and bringing forth aspects which wouldn't be necessarily termed as art in many other contexts. So yeah, so I'm just trying to imagine what we would see in the 100 days is possibly like an explosion of spaces to be occupied and conversations to be had. And the beauty of it is I'm positive that no single entity actually has an understanding of what is going to happen across the spectrum, because there's so much happening in ripples that everyone is like catching up with all these amazing conversations that are going on and all the food that needs to be had also. So.
Yeah, when you ask if it's been worth it, I think I come back to the image that Surab showed to us. I think I personally think I still need a bit of perspective in time and space to have that reflection, but we're certainly in a constant reflection about it. No, in Arts Collaboratory, we use this concept of cyclical learning, and I think we're all the time in this cycle of understanding each step, and then it makes questions back to us, which relates to our own trajectory, but then also to like the bigger or wider relations we are building in this interlocal kind of globality. So yeah, but I'm really looking forward to something that we have proposed ourselves as interlocal, is to be able to meet maybe next year and with a bit more of perspective and time to think, to understand how this whole experiment has affected or transformed us in ways. No?
Yeah, if I might add, I think that point around what we don't see is a really vital one. Also because so much is happening, particularly in attempting to create a more direct relationship between what Documenta offers as the machine and monster that it is, and our own sort of local contexts and our own sort of, for many of us, I think, political agendas. So for example, in our Majelis, there are a number of additional projects that we're collaborating on that won't necessarily be in Kassel, that will have some kind of life and presence in Kassel, but there'll be a collaborative exhibition in South Africa, for example. In Argentina, there's a whole process happening there. And a lot of that is also about enabling a kind of connection with our own ecosystems and communities of practice to these really extraordinary practitioners from other parts of the world. And a lot of that will be, I think, quite invisible to the kind of the exhibition format of what might be otherwise expected. But as Surab says, is this kind of explosion of sort of multiplicities that's effectively happening across the globe instead of centered kind of in one place. But then also becomes this opportunity to bring a lot of people from around the world into the central point.
Maybe I can complicate things again by reading another, like Gertrude was starting to read the next question, but we have two now. One is like deriving from Molemo, like how the relation to collective practices and the mega exhibition, especially when it's like, you know, art to be shown in the middle of mega exhibition, which we started to touch upon. And the second one is like, I think what Surab was describing as the work in quotation marks. Could you expand on what Surab described as the work of art, you know? So maybe what I can say to start, and then please jump in, anyone. Like, we're lucky as well. Of course, we know it was a risk from Ruangrupa to begin with when we started by inviting Documenta to be part of our journey, and then therefore being part of an ecosystem. And then we were actually kind of like also surprised that actually it got bitten positively, you know, because we were just like, we knew it was like a long shot. Instead of making a new concept or something like that for Documenta, we're just like trying to let out the journey that we are in be influenced by other forces as big as Documenta. So I think it will be a surprise as well for us. It has been a lot of surprises, like what the artists here have been sharing as well. And then we're lucky in the sense that we know Documenta has certain limitations, of course, but also possibilities in the sense of time and scale and all those kind of stuff. That something that at least have the tradition to reinvent itself every edition, which I don't think a lot of biennials, let's say, or perennials, other perennials have. We've been also kind of like discussing this between Ruangrupa when we made that invitation back. It was kind of like, if Documenta couldn't do it, others, let alone others, let's say, because of that, of like the freedom as well to reinvent. And then hopefully this time it also kind of like timely, because of the, I personally, if we decided to begin with a theme, a concept, and then inviting artists and works that illustrate that concept, you know, all those kind of stuff, it would be impossible to make under these circumstances right now. So yeah, maybe the work thing, somebody else as well, or continuing that, up to you. Can take over the mic.
It was a question directed to Surab, but if you don't want to talk about it, also in previous questions, there was this issue of solidarity that came up that we didn't tackle, I think. So we could also expand a bit on that, I think, because it has been 2 years, not only of COVID, no, but we started with Colombia, with the killing of so many social leaders, a war in Gaza, many wars in Mali, and now the Ukraine war, anti-Semitist allegations. So yeah, I think the majelises, and especially also the Majelis Akbar, has been an important platform to share kind of situations and be in solidarity. However, it always remains a question, how can we really be in solidarity? I don't know if you want to say something about that or go back to the work of art.
Yeah, I wanted to, it's a little bit in between both, because I do think, again, going back to what I was saying, I'm curious to know what in the end will happen, or how will this affect to Documenta trajectory, because it's also like an invitation, no, for them to be part of this process rather than us be Documenta, no? So that's like a very yeah, provocative invitation of Ruangrupa and the artistic team. And I'm just thinking how important is to feel uncomfortable sometimes in such urgent contexts. We do get tired of being in struggles in so many ways, but at the same time, when I say uncomfortable, is when like very built positions or ideas that you thought were there, very firm, get kind of wobbled around, no? So, or taking your metaphor, Surab, I feel like we're all in fermentation. We're all kind of sharing our bacterias, and just very curious to know how this uncomfortable process of inevitable change in many ways is going to then kind of open up maybe more solid, hopefully, no, like more solidarity, more self-awareness of our institutional powers in the many different levels, or how we learn so much of the ways and practices that others are kind of delving with in contexts that we might have not known before. So I like this. We've also used this idea in Más Arte, Más Acción, in improbable encounters. So kind of all of these power structures in a way don't, or make more put like more limitations on a possibility of all of us encountering, no? Because of many different things, no? It's more easy to encounter ourselves with the, I don't know, European context, or the places of the traditional circulation of ideas or whatever, or dominant. But then it'll be such an amazing moment to be able to have an encounter which is quite exceptional, no? And in regards to for example, the anti-Semitism allegations, or also racism allegations that might come to our own processes, it's very much about embracing feeling uncomfortable and building out of that, no? Like being very, bringing humility, humility, I think, for me is important. To be able and to know that we are kind of constructing and building ourselves every day and every time. So I think this is like very much an invitation of this whole Lumbung process.
I can add, very much agree with Aleja. I think what's really vital about what you're raising is that rather than seeing Documenta as a kind of a thing that can be finished, as like an event with an exhibition that is done and that opens, I think very much from the impetus of Ruangrupa and then through very much everybody's processes, rather than trying to translate something into a kind of finished expression or a complete statement, it's in many senses kind of part of a broader journey, or even the beginning of many steps. And so there isn't necessarily, I think, an attempt for collectives to try to articulate a wholeness of process, or to even attempt to kind of translate in total, but rather it's a kind of, you can step into a process. Anybody who comes to Documenta can kind of step into any number of processes. And the intention is very much that these processes continue. And I think one of the things that Documenta has been so amazing about is just being able to find each other, because that's not necessarily that easy. And there's so much already bubbling. I mean, I have 2 other projects that are non-Documenta related that have emerged with other artists from Documenta, that are like, once we found each other, obviously there's going to be so much more. And so this becomes the kind of, maybe the beginning of a process. And so the work or the translation is not, it's not so much pressure to try and articulate the fullness, but rather to recognize this as one part of a much longer journey, I think.
Maybe on that note, because of time, maybe it's good to say that looking forward then to see all of us here and more in person, hopefully in Kassel, between 18th of June up until the 25th of September. Then it's going to run like, maybe Ameng also can tease this a little bit, and then we are not seeing it as like usually opening and closing is like the busy time, and then the middle is like, you know, so-so time, but like we're trying our best also to spread out with limitations, of course, but hopefully anytime you can come, there will be some experiences in multiple levels. Those who only wants to see, not getting in, and, you know, having aesthetic experiences and all those kind of stuff. We will have painting, sculptures, and so forth, and so far, you know, whatever. For those who are into those things, but then other levels, gradation of levels up until, you know, being very, very wanting to be part of the work, even like only wants to deal with one work outside of the whole castle during what we have them as well. So hopefully those experiences will enrich a lot of your lives as well, and then coming out of their positive, being positive and hopeful as well, positive and feeling, hopefully not in the PCR test. And then, yeah, maybe that's from me, but Gertrude, Ameng, Surab, Molemo, Aleha, and Xiaotian, if you wanna have the last words, please be my guest. Oh, and there's one thing, one last question actually. What do you invite visitors to bring to this Documenta from Merrill? But anyway, maybe it also can be transformed into a closing statement. Thank you from my side.
To bring maybe, I think when we speak about majelises and collectivity, it's a lot about hosting, no? So as a guest, to also maybe be a host and to bring that kind of spirit, I would say. Xiaotian, I think you wanted to say something great.
No, I'm fine.
Maybe to bring a hungry stomach for all of the food. And I mean, I think to bring curiosity,
maybe curiosity.
and maybe yeah.
And also continuing with the food paradigm, which I think everyone here functions on, I would imagine going to this Documenta as comparing it between going to a restaurant where you'll be served food, as against that going to a kitchen where you will cook food with everyone. So you don't need to bring knives and cutlery along. We'll provide everything. Don't worry about that. But the willingness to chop some veggies and meat and things and stir things up with everyone while probably karaoke goes on, kind of a thing. So yeah, cooking together rather than eating out is possibly one of the ways to look at it.
Yeah, and continuing with the fermentation, this is this is not a very COVID. ¿Cómo se dice? Sorry, I don't get the word in English, but bring your bacteria, like new organisms and new really amazing kind of cosmovisions are up to be here or sharing and kind of pollinizing and having new configurations of our bacteria. So I think we will do another, how do you say, masa madre, mother, yeah, masa madre of the bread.
Yeah, the mother culture, the ferment.
Yes, mother culture. We will have a mother, like Lumbung mother culture coming out of Documenta.
See you with your masa madres then, no?
Yeah, with your masa madres.
Yeah,
Thank
just
you very much.
yeah, want to say that it will be dynamic. It's not going to be like a static kind of exhibition that you can experience this whenever you visit Basel, either in the opening, either in the July, August, or September, because I think there will be many of us there shifting, I think, because most of the collective will be there shifting, and there it depends who's there and who you meet, and it will create different also experience and activities. So yeah, that's I think will be yeah, I mean good to also for us to also have a surprise always from every season. So it's not like yeah, it like Farid mentioned, it is like after opening, then will be so-so kind of, yeah.
All right, so looking forward to see all of you, and then thank you very, very much for Art Basel Hong Kong, of course, and then also for the audience who stays tuning in with us tonight from our side, and I think Shaotian and Hong Kong side as well, and then today for the rest. And then thank you very much again, and see you hopefully in person soon with food.
Thank
and
you.
rest.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Art
Thank
Basel.
you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Yes.
Ooh.